Mommy, did Santa forget about me because Daddy left?
Emma Castellano froze, her 4-year-old daughter's question cutting deeper than any boardroom battle she'd faced. It was Christmas Eve, and little Sophie clutched her worn teddy bear, the only toy that had survived their hurried move from the mansion to this small apartment after the divorce. Emma, 29 and newly appointed CEO of Castellano Industries, the company her late father had built, was supposed to have everything figured out, but she didn't have an answer for this. 6 months ago, Emma's world had shattered. Her husband Richard had been charming once, but money had twisted him into something cruel. When her father fell ill, Richard had pushed for control of the company, forging documents, manipulating board members. Emma discovered his schemes only after her father's death, along with evidence of affairs and embezzled funds. The divorce was brutal. Richard took almost everything in the settlement before fleeing to Europe, leaving Emma and Sophie with nothing but her father's company, drowning in debt from Richard's mismanagement and a mother's broken promise. "I'll get you that dollhouse, sweetheart," Emma had sworn weeks ago, before realizing the company's accounts were frozen during the board investigation, before understanding that being CEO meant nothing when you couldn't afford your daughter's Christmas wish. The toy store had held the dollhouse, a beautiful Victorian model Sophie had seen in their window every day walking to preschool, but they'd sold it that afternoon. The clerk mentioned a mechanic shop across town had ordered one for their charity drive. Emma called immediately. Jake Mercer answered on the 4th ring, his voice rough with fatigue. At 33, he'd been running Mercer's auto repair since his father's stroke 3 years ago. The old man could barely speak now, but Jake visited him every evening after closing shop, reading to him, holding his weathered hand. His mother had died when he was 12, cancer they couldn't afford to treat properly. His father had worked triple shifts to raise him alone, teaching him that your worth wasn't measured in wealth, but in the grease under your nails and the promises you kept. This Christmas, Jake had promised the Children's Hospital he'd deliver toys to kids who couldn't go home for the holidays. He'd spent months fixing donated bicycles, gathering gifts. The dollhouse was for a little girl named Maya, who'd been waiting for a heart transplant for 8 months. When Emma called, desperate, explaining her daughter's belief that Santa had forgotten her, Jake heard something beyond words. He heard his own mother's voice from years ago, promising him everything would be okay, when it wasn't. He heard the kind of heartbreak that makes people question kindness itself. "Ma'am, I promised this to another child," he said slowly. Then he paused, thinking of his father's teachings, of Maya's understanding smile when she'd told him last week, "Mr. Jake, if another kid needs it more, that's okay. I've got my books. But if you tell me where you are, I'll bring it tonight." Emma gave him the address, not understanding why a stranger would do this. The forecast showed a blizzard rolling in, 12 inches expected, roads closing within hours. Jake loaded the dollhouse into his truck at 9 p.m. The snow was already falling thick, turning the world white and silent. He drove carefully through empty streets, his windshield wipers fighting the accumulation. Twice he nearly turned back. The roads were disappearing, but he kept hearing that mother's voice, kept thinking of Sophie, believing she'd been forgotten. It took 2 hours to drive what should have been 20 minutes. His truck slid twice. He had to dig himself out once, his hands numb even through gloves. When he finally reached the modest apartment building, it was nearly midnight, Christmas Day. Emma opened the door, stunned to see a snow-covered man holding a large wrapped box, his face red from cold, his breath forming clouds in the hallway. You actually came," she whispered. "Promised I would, ma'am. Promises matter. My dad taught me that." Sophie appeared behind her mother, eyes wide. "Mommy, is that Santa's helper?" Jake knelt down slowly, setting the box before the little girl. "Santa asked me to make sure this got to you, Sophie. He never forgets. Not ever." Sophie threw her arms around his neck, and Jake felt tears freeze on his cheeks. Emma watched this stranger, this mechanic who'd risked his life through a blizzard for a child he'd never met, and something broke open inside her. The wall she'd built against trusting anyone. "Please, come in. Warm up. I'll make coffee. I need to pay you. "No payment, ma'am. Just seeing her smile is enough." Over coffee, they talked. Jake learned about Richard's betrayal, about Emma's struggle to save her father's company while being a mother. Emma learned about Jake's father, about Maya at the hospital, about a man who measured wealth in kept promises. "I have a confession. I'm the new CEO of Castellano Industries. We manufacture auto parts, and from what I've learned tonight about integrity, I'd like to offer you something, not charity, a partnership. Your shop could become our authorized service center. Fair contracts, good terms, because I'm trying to rebuild this company on the values my father believed in, the ones my ex-husband destroyed, values you just drove through a blizzard to prove still exist." Jake looked at her, seeing not a CEO, but a mother who'd do anything for her daughter. "Ma'am, Emma, I'd be honored. But can I ask something? Maya, at the hospital. Could you visit her sometime? She loves stories about strong women. She needs to know they're real." "I'll visit tomorrow. And Jake, thank you for reminding me that kindness isn't weakness. My father used to say that. I'd forgotten." Months later, Castellano Industries thrived under Emma's leadership. Jake's shop became their flagship partner. Sophie and Maya became pen pals. And on quiet evenings, Emma would tell her daughter about the mechanic who plowed through snow to deliver hope when they needed it most. Because sometimes the most valuable thing you can deliver isn't a toy. It's the reminder that in a world that often forgets, some promises are still kept, and some people still care.